What advice would you give to someone who struggles with doubts about God and their salvation? I know you shared that was a struggle earlier in your life, and that was definitely a struggle for me for really a good portion of my short life so far. So you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think probably we are similar. We're both probably doubters by nature. I find myself in the shoes of doubting Thomas often, unless I can see it, touch it, feel it, that I'm going to sort of be doubtful about it. And even if I can sense it in some way, I still will find something to be skeptical about. You probably remember Ramiro Will Galkin recently talked about this when at a camp that you and I both were at. And he talked about how often as Christians we have to reboot. And it seems that there is just this insidious persistence to doubt, and which really is probably true, because it's not just an inanimate thing. It's actually animate. There's somebody behind it who would like nothing more than for us to walk by sight and not by faith. That's really the nature of sin, right? Any kind of rebellion against God is walking by sight and not by faith. And God says, no, it's the other way around. In this life, you walk by faith, not by sight. But I think two things in particular that have stood out to me. One is something a friend told me that he does in his own Christian life, and that is the necessity to doubt our doubts. So we tend to give great credence to our doubt, as if somehow doubt has the upper hand in the conversation. But the truth is, doubt is the newcomer. And we need to be skeptical about our skepticism. That when, I think about the verse in 2 Timothy, where Paul says, Timothy, continue in the things that you have learned and have been assured of. So first of all, Paul is telling Timothy, the thing that you already believe, that's the thing you need to stick with. And then he tells Timothy why he needs to stick with that. He says, because you know who you learned it from. And he says, you learned it from your mom and your grandma, which is very different than the way most of us think. We tend to think that the thing that our mom and our grandma told us is the thing that we need to doubt in some way, shape, or form, that because it was somebody that we know, and that's somehow the reason we ought to doubt it. But Paul says, no, you stick with the thing that you know, because you trust them. And so anyway, so that's been something that I've had to think through is, okay, I need to doubt my doubts. Another thing, this is what John Piper says. He says often that he will pray, God, fix my brain. So we tend to give great credence to our brain, as if our brain has the upper hand in the conversation. But it's like, no, I need God to fix my brain. So when I look at the Bible gets the upper hand, and I need God to speak to me in that way.
Well, that's really, really good. I found throughout my walk with God that tactic, especially the first one that you said of doubting your doubts, is really helpful for me. Because you're right, it's like we get, Satan spews one doubt into our mind, and it's like we got to focus all our attention on it. We got to think about it, and we got to figure it out, and ignore all that God has, shown us in His Word that is true, and all the evidence that supports it. It's like that's just thrown by the wayside. So that's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think another factor that just kind of what you just said, that everybody's trusting somebody. Nobody is, even an agnostic is trusting their lack of decisiveness, as somehow having the upper hand. And so everybody's got to trust somebody. Either I'm going to trust the composite of all of human wisdom, or I'm going to trust my ability to reason, or I'm going to trust in an infallible source, a source outside of humanity, who has spoken. And I believe that we are taking the much wiser decision to say, let's abandon our implicit trust in the human brain and let's trust in divine authority. And that is walking by faith at the end of the day, but I think it's a much more well-founded faith.